Welcome all to another NFL career video. This day we're talking about Big Dog, the Minister of Defense. That's right, Reggie White, one of the greatest players of all time. Second all time in career sacks, only two behind the great Bruce Smith, and arguably may even be the greatest pass rusher of all time. Now, yes, Bruce Smith does have more, but in my opinion, I would put Reggie White above. Also, simply because he has a Super Bowl that Bruce Smith and his teams never could, but he has a career-laden career. Again, the sack totals are gaudy, the tackle numbers are gaudy, even though for the first 8 years of his career, he played during a time where a lot of the solo tackles, assisted tackles, tackles for loss weren't even recorded, or at least not consistently enough. And even still today, they are considered unofficial stats, but we all see them as a reason to, see them as another explicating factor about how great a defensive player is. Now, we'll go through his career year to year, starting in 1985 and getting all the way down to his final year in the year 2000 when he came out of retirement and played 16 games for the Carolina Panthers. Then, of course, talk about his untimely death in 2004. But we start off with the 1984 supplemental draft. Now, you may be wondering, the supplemental draft is still a thing today, but rarely people use picks because they don't want to waste a regular pick on someone that might be seen as kind of a problem or might, that kind of thing, officially in the draft. But this year was around the time of the USFL, and which was just starting, and then you have the CFL also. So to avoid wasting draft picks on players that might go with another league, this was another way to draft players. And he was drafted 4th overall, or other players drafted in this draft for Hall of Famers Steve Young and Gary Zimmerman as well. Now, from the very start, he was on a wrecking path. I mean, starting off in his first year, he had 2 fumble recoveries, his 13 sacks, a combined 100 tackles. He was Defensive Rookie of the Year behind a guy named Dwayne Bickett, who I've never heard, but when you look at some of his career stats, he had a decent career, nowhere near the career that Reggie White did, but let's be honest, Dwayne Bickett played every game of that year, and Reggie White played in only 13 and started in 12, but even still, 13 sacks and only 12 games started, it's fantastic. I mean, he's truly was one of the greatest of his era, and it really started to show, like, from the get-go that he could get to the quarterback with ease and make it looking easy. And of course, he was drafted by the Philadelphia Eagles, and he played there for 8 years. Now we go on to the next year, 1986. 16 games started, 18 sacks, 98 combined tackles, All-Pro 1, Pro Bowl, and this is where the career awards start to pile up. 18 sacks, All-Pro 1. No Defensive Player of the Year votes, which is weird because 18 sacks in 16 games is pretty balmy start. And again, no solo tackles, no assisted tackles yet, one forced fumble, no touchdowns or anything, but another great year. And now we go to 1987. 21 sacks, 76 combined tackles, had a fumble recovery for a touchdown, and AP Defensive Player of the Year, AP 1, and Pro Bowl. Another great year. Frankly, he should have been up for MVP votes this year. I mean, that's a great stat line. I mean, and even better yet, he played only 12 games. He had 21 sacks in 12 games that year. This is fantastic. You can't get much better than that base. I mean, he was TJ Watt before TJ Watt. I mean, he was great, and he was part of that great Buddy Ryan defense combined with Malcolm Brown on the other side. I mean, that defense was one of the better defenses of all time, but sadly they never won anything, and thus are kind of forgotten about, but they should be remembered because yeah, to have two guys like Malcolm Brown and Reggie White coming at you from opposite sides is a scary thought. Next, we get to 1988, 16 games started, 18 sacks total, a combined 133 tackles, and again, imagine these MVP type seasons. That yes, he wasn't named MVP, but I mean, look at those numbers. Just imagine how many tackles for losses he had, how many actual quarterback hits he would have had that just weren't recorded until way or early in the 2000s, and quarterback hits was 2006. So he didn't win AP, or he was second place in AP Defensive Player of the Year behind Mike Singletary. But when you compare Mike Singletary to Reggie White this year, Mike Singletary definitely had an interception, but again, since linebacker numbers are based a lot on tackles, solo tackles weren't really recorded, or at least not consistently, and were thus unofficial stats. And I had a hell of a time trying to find actual real stats, and it's just like, I mean, frankly, I think this year should have gone to Reggie White once again. I feel like he was kind of raw, but even through 4 years, he had over 70 sacks. I mean, what a torrid pace to start your career. Next year, 1989, 103, 23 combined tackles, only 11 sacks this time, 1 fumble recovery, and 3 forced fumbles. Again, not as good, only 4th place for AP Defensive Player of the Year, but again, so All-Pro 1, Pro Bowl. Again, this is his 4th year in a row being All-Pro defensive end for the 4th year in a row. Another Pro Bowl selection, still helping or leading that Philadelphia Eagle defense. And the numbers just are going to keep pouring on. 1990, 14 sacks. He had his first interception for a 33-yard long. Didn't score a touchdown on it. 4 forced fumbles, 1 fumble recovery, another All-Pro 1 selection, Pro Bowl selection as well, and the numbers just keep piling up. I mean, I could show highlights, but I'll let you watch them at your leisure, because I mean, you just look, he's just a shit wrecker. He was just a shit wrecker. Could get to the quarterback whenever he wanted, and he was still has a couple more years in Philadelphia left. Still got a couple more years in Philadelphia left. Next, we have 1991. 3 fumble recoveries, 2 forced fumbles, 1 for 8 yards, 100 combined tackles again, or 3rd place for AP Defensive Player of the Year, All-Pro 1, and Pro Bowl again. 5 years in a row. Well, actually, 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 years in a row being All-Pro 1 selection as a defensive end. I mean, they just keep piling up. 1992, another 16 games played, another fumble recovery for 37 yards and a touchdown, 14 sacks, 81 combined tackles. Again, AP Defensive Player of the Year, 8th this time. And this is the first year he wasn't selected AP number 1. But he got another Pro Bowl selection. Again, another All-Pro selection. I mean, when it's all said and done, he'll end up with 13 Pro Bowl selections and 8 All-Pro selections. I mean, not many defense players ever can boast about that. 1993, another 16 games played, but this time with the great Green Bay Packers, leaving the confines behind Philadelphia, and now for the 13 sacks, 79 combined tackles, and AP Defensive Player of the Year number 2, AP 2, and Pro Bowl. I mean, he brought a new sense of urgency to the Packers defense. I mean, after so many years of having bad defenses, the addition to Reggie White really brought things together for the Packers. Ron Wolf took over around this time, and Reggie White was one of the first free agent selections that the Packers have made that were really good for a long time. And this was started to see at the beginning of the Packers' rise back to relevance after a long period of not doing much of anything. Next we get to 1994. 16 games played, 15 games started, 2 forced fumbles, 1 fumble recovery, only 8 sacks, but still a pretty good year. Now 49 combined tackles, and this was the first year solo tackles came into play. And then assisted tackles 14. So this is when they started to break them down. Again, the solo and assisted tackles still aren't seen as an official stat, but they are recorded more frequently now. And that's why a lot of players of the past, like the great Jesse Tuggle, who was seen to have had as many as 200 tackles in a year, don't get the Hall of Fame boasting that he should get. I mean, he was truly great as well. But back to Reggie White. Great year, another great year. No playoff success for the Packers again, but 1995 comes around. 15 games played, 13 games started, 12 sacks, 42 combined tackles, 31 solo tackles, 11 assisted tackles, 2 forced fumbles, and again, AP Defensive Player of the Year number 3, or 8. Defensive Player of the Year, number 3. AP 1, Pro Bowl, great, another great year. Then we get to the great year, 1996, the year the Packers end up winning the Super Bowl. His third interception of his career, 3 forced fumbles, 2 fumbles overall, 3 fumble recoveries, 39 combined tackles, 30 solo tackles, and 9 assists. He's getting up there in years for sure. So 8.5, again, not the greatest year, but he's still All-Pro 2. Still Pro Bowl. I mean, he just brings it every year. Every year, he brings it hard, and he's a faithful guy. I mean, he truly was a godly man, and it's sad to say that we never got him to be at his actual Hall of Fame induction. We'll talk a little bit more about that later. But 1997 rolls around. 16 games started. 2 fumble recoveries, 46 combined tackles, 11 sacks. For another great year. All-Pro 2, Pro Bowl. Again, you know what happened this year if you're a Packer fan in the Super Bowl? Yeah, it wasn't great. And then 1998, his last great year. 16 games started. 4 forced fumbles, 16 sacks, 46 combined tackles. AP Defensive Player of the Year number 1, 5th place for Comeback Player of the Year. All-Pro won his last All-Pro number 1 selection, and Pro Bowl, his last Pro Bowl as well. Talk about going on a high now. Now, again, no Super Bowl success this year, but after a long career, he retired after this year, took a year off. But, I mean, it's hard to argue say he went out on top, because he did. He really did. He did come back for another year, one last year with the Carolina Panthers in 2000. Played all 16 games, only 5.5 sacks, 16 combined tackles, 15 solo tackles, 1 fumble recovery. So, again, it was his last year in the league. So, you know, at this point, he was 39 years old, and he definitely had lost a step, but still, he can still get the quarterback. 5.5 sacks for his age is not bad. Not bad at all. But again, when it's all said and done, he ended his career with 198 sacks. Second all-time to Bruce Smith. And frankly, arguably, I would argue he was a better pass rusher than Bruce Smith. Just slightly better, but better. Not to mention more playoff success. Combined tackles, over 1,111 combined tackles, 175 solo tackles, only 5 tackles for loss, which back 2000 was the first year it started to be recorded efficiently. And just imagine, if this recorded set tackles for loss was recorded for, back in the 80s, he'd probably have over 100 tackles for loss. I mean, he just was that good at disrupting the play. You always had to keep your mind on Reggie White because he was always there, ready to eat your lunch and take you down. And then the sad day. December 26, 2004, day after Christmas. I remember I was only 10 years old, but I do remember this vividly in my mind. I remember turning on the TV, and there's a press conference. And it's like, what's this about? Then I find out the great man has passed away. Died of a heart attack. Way too young. Again, it was it was a very sad day. I remember. I remember like, wow, Reggie White is gone. Reggie White is gone. He truly was a great player. I never got to see him during his heyday. I mean, even during his last year, I was really young, so and not into football yet. So, um, someday I'd like to. It'd be really would have been cool to go back in time just to see him during his heyday. I mean, because he truly was great, a great Godwin man as well. Sad to see him be gone so soon. And like I said earlier, he would have probably given one of the greatest Hall of Fame speeches of all time. So humble, so godly. We truly missed out on something. It was posthumously announced into the Hall of Fame, and man, it's a sad day. It's a sad day. Maybe had he not played that last year, he definitely would have been able, based on the timeline, to see him in give his Hall of Fame induction speech. But he had one more year in him, and he played his heart out, even at the advanced age of 39. At least in terms of football years, that's pretty old. But man, Reggie White, truly one of the greatest players of all time, one of my favorite players of all time, and truly may argue be the number one defensive player of all time when it's all said and done. When the NFL finally ends and everybody's just talking about the greatness that was football, I'm sure at that point, if football is broken down and the NFL is no longer a thing, society will have collapsed before then. But, when you look back on the greats of the NFL, look to Reggie White as arguably the greatest defensive player of all time. It's really hard to argue against that. But let me know what you think down in the comments below. I'm going to be putting up a poll in the next couple of days about the next NFL grade I should talk about, do a career retrospective on. But again, all credit goes to the hockey guy inspiring this idea. Just no one had done this for the NFL. Figured I might as well be the one to do it. But let me know what you think down below. Keep answering the polls. Keep responding to all my other videos. I love the comments, even the douchebag ones who are saying I'm like the official look of autism, which I haven't heard that for a while. But I know some people still think that it's not true. But let me know what you think. Have a great day. God bless the Packers, and God bless the great Reggie White.